In the continent of passions, far to the west, legends tell of an ancient warrior. The Cyclops, Gorno Flash Crimson, the Golden Rock. A huge humanoid with a single eye set in its forehead. Few creatures in the history of the universe of Soul have matched her wild bloodlust. Near 150 souls have been lost to the Cyclops' rampage. She has wandered the West since a time before time, and her slaughter has spanned all the ages of creation. When the world was still young, Gorno met another of her kind, and she birthed a daughter, Sadur Howlglow, the Certain Right. Gorno and Sadur often fight at each other's side, raising towns, forests, and fortresses together as mother and daughter. But after so many eons, Gorno grew unsatisfied with her plunder. Something called to her across the sea. Perhaps she heard tales of great dwarven wealth, or sought warriors worthy of her might to face in the field of battle. But whatever her reasons, she embarked on a journey far to the east, across mountain and marina, until she reached the folded continents. And in those new lands, so strange to her, she comes across a settlement by the sea. Gorno now approaches the dwarven fortress of Oshensdagshil, Chantedfins, ignorant of the foul things waiting for her there. Good evening. Tonight, the dwarves of Chantedfins entertain a rare visitor indeed. The Cyclops, Gorno Lesmnostiku Ongongareg, has come. She seeks to break dwarven skulls and raise our lands, but I suspect she'll get a little more than she bargained for. She stands face to face with the depraved horde of undead goblins that has besieged our dwarves for so long. Stark naked and so wildly outnumbered, I doubt Gorno has much chance of ultimately winning, but perhaps she'll surprise us. A flurry of crossbow bolts from the undead army, but the Cyclops charges on. She's holding her own for now. A few goblins have been struck down, but now she's clashing with a once resting one. Spears stab and axes swing, but unfortunately there's little hope for the Cyclops. Gorno Flash Crimson, the Golden Rock, has been struck down. 5 centuries of slaughter, brought to an end by the overwhelming power of the undead. It looks like she left behind quite a few valuable items, 3 spears and an artifact crown. Luckily, the significance of the treasures Gorno left behind are lost on the mindless marauders that put her down. Once the undead take their leave of us, we'll be able to snatch up these ancient items and examine them more closely. And just our luck, the siege has been broken. It looks like Gorno's sacrifice did some good after all. We've made extra sure there aren't any undead still roaming the surface. We can't afford another encounter with them after the havoc they wrought last time. Well, let's pull the levers and get out there as quick as possible. There's no telling how long until the undead come back, and there's a lot to do to prepare for them. We need a fortified wall surrounding the fortress to provide a vantage point for Mark's dwarves. We've been carving obsidian and cinnabar blocks for some time, so I think we'll have plenty of building materials. We're also deepening the moat. It'll be easier to smooth the walls and prevent invaders from climbing up once it's been dug a few layers into the stone. A human diplomat has arrived with a small armed escort. Tor Westrout, head chancellor of the Union of Kegs, a human civilization our people are allied with. I believe we did some small amount of trading with the Union back before the undead started attacking, but we haven't encountered them very often so far. Let's see what he wants. He's meeting with Thob, who, if you recall, is one of the 2 13-year-old barons that were crowned recently. He gives us news of the outside world. The humans have a pretty well-established fort just southwest of us, called Trim Master. The Union of Kegs have been sending out attacks from there against one of our mutual enemies, the goblins from the nation of the Fell Witch. Last year, they sent out an attack on a nearby goblin dark pit, called Seduced Beetles. Well, anything that keeps the nearby goblin settlements occupied and out of our hair is welcome as far as we're concerned. We have enough problems here as it is. We're settled pretty much on the border between the goblin lands immediately north and the human lands further south, so we'll likely need to rely on our human allies quite a lot. Further abroad, it seems like the goblins of the Fell Witch and the humans of the Union of Kegs have been battling quite extensively, with the goblins gaining a bit more ground. The goblins have certainly been aggressive lately. They've even taken a few settlements from the mountain home up north. They took the long-contested fortress of Workglaze, which has changed hands dozens of times over the centuries. There's 5,000 goblins living there now, a strong foothold near the heart of dwarven lands. But really, what do we care about the military failings of the mountain home? Last we heard, Osnoon Doombirds the Usurper was still queen of our people, and she's a goblin herself. What value is there in fighting over which goblin tyrant rules you? That's why we built this place to begin with, to rule ourselves. The diplomat finishes his meeting with the lordling and spends some time socializing in the tavern. With the new barons now taking part in important diplomatic dealings like this, it's probably a good idea to get a feel for their personalities. First, we'll take a look at Thob Mismerule, who just conducted that meeting. He's the Baron of Gate Focuses, a somewhat populous hillocks, way out to the northeast. Thob lacks confidence, rarely changes his mind, dislikes cooperation, and is quite ambitious. He also does everything he can to avoid excitement or stress after the unexpected death of his mother last year. Yes, his mother was the unfortunate dwarf who drowned in the cavern after being attacked by a giant bat. And of course, we were never able to recover her body, so he never got much closure either. Thob has been through a lot, it seems. His personality, recent trauma, and young age concern me. It might not be a great idea to give a stubborn, ambitious, insecure, and grieving kid this kind of power, but then that's feudalism for you. Thob also doesn't worship any of the dwarven gods. The other baron is named Ablel Zonkir. She's Baroness of Grand Bridges, a barely populated hamlet up near Gate Focuses. Ablel wishes the world would operate in complete harmony without strife or disorder, doesn't value fighting or working hard, is very humble, and asks others for help with difficult decisions. It sounds like she's got a more healthy mindset about this nobility thing than Thob. The last thing we need is a bunch of power-hungry 13-year-old barons running this fortress into the ground. Ablel doesn't have any family in the fortress, or even close friends. I guess she came here on her own. She's also a faithful worshipper of Tig the Lustful, and a worshipper of the mountainous rocks. Remember that both these barons were simple citizens of the fortress before they inherited their respective baronies just a few months ago. The two aren't family or friends or anything. As far as we can tell, their simultaneous promotions to nobility were complete coincidence. We'll probably learn more about what happened to the previous barons when the dwarven caravan arrives next year. Neither Ablel nor Thob seem particularly interested in heading out to rule over their actual holdings, so for now we'll just keep sprucing up their dwellings here in the fortress to keep them happy. Some new migrants are entering the fortress, bringing us to 84 dwarves. We're going to need Mark's dwarves to man the walls, so we're making a new squad called the Heavenly Rings, specializing in crossbows. The militia captain is a former member of the Gilded Gears, Kogasak Kedotkel, who is adept with a crossbow. The rest of the squad is made up of new migrants and some of the less useful workers from the fortress. Spring is here, at the start of our 6th year, 555. A kobold thief has arrived at the fortress to ring in the new year by trying to grab some of our stuff. Luckily, she's to the west of our fortress. Some of the artifacts Gorno left behind are still outside to the southeast. We've scared this creature off, though. Now seems like a pretty good time to secure Gorno's artifacts. We're putting them on display in our dining hall, along with her skeletal remains. Don't worry, the bones are too far mangled for our necromancers to be able to reanimate them. Let's take a look at these treasures. First, we have Notlith Vutram, the Ruin of Gales, an almandine crown worth 31,200. It is encircled with bands of pigtail, and menaces with spikes of crocodile bone. Fairly simple, and fairly valuable. Next up is Ogmongsocks, Shred Whip, a legendary applewood spear. Worth a measly 28, it's just a wooden spear with an image of ratweed and cherry wood on it. Of course, it belonged to an elf. That elf did use it to kill a troll, which I guess is kind of impressive. Far more impressive is Gorno's history with the spear. She's slaughtered 17 people with this thing. All dwarves and elves. That's quite a feat using such a frankly pathetic weapon. Gorno's second spear is called Ilungakast Anilkatad, Hailed Skewered, the Glorious Company, an artifact bismuth bronze spear worth 18,960. The object menaces with spikes of cow horn. On the item is an image of forgotten beasts in giant cave toad bone. Gorno stole this weapon a little later than the wooden spear, sometime around the turn of the 3rd century. She's only actually used this thing to kill 8 people over the subsequent centuries. Of note is that one of the spear's previous owners was Noel Special Nut the Climactic Controls, a giantess. I wonder if she came up with that title herself. Anyway, she killed 6 people with it. Finally, we have Marusudar, the Uncommon Rain, an artifact silver spear worth 28,800. It is encrusted with radiant cut sardonyxes and encircled with bands of cat bone. On the item is an image of a forgotten beast in blue peafowl bone. It also features the image of a legendary Gabbro slab, the Influential Radiance, in chrysocolla. Gorno stole this spear in 138, before all the others, and it cannot be denied, she has put it to work. Gorno has killed 58 people with it. Elves, goblins, dwarves, and humans, her slaughter knew no bounds. Well, this all makes for a pretty nice display, but once we've got some suitable spear dwarves, we'll definitely want to actually use Hailed Skewered and the Uncommon Rain in our military. It'll probably take another migrant wave or 2 before we have a large enough militia for that, though. Work proceeds quickly on the wall, but the clock is ticking. Who knows how long we'll have until the undead return. Our new Marks dwarves have just been assigned to the archery range, where they'll be able to practice their shooting. And to help further fill out their ranks, we've just received another migrant wave. The Heavenly Rings is now staffed with a full 10 Marks dwarves. We've also equipped 2 random unskilled workers with the artifact spears and told them to start training. We don't have any skilled spear dwarves, so I figured we might as well just choose anybody. One of them is a Gelder, so maybe there are some transferable skills there. Summer arrives as we rapidly approach the completion of the wall. In the courtyard we've enclosed, a few precious little animals are grazing. Over the years we've caught many wild animals roaming the grassland in our scattered cage traps. Among them was a breeding pair of rhinoceros, who have finally given birth. We've tamed their offspring, who will one day grow up to be huge and ferocious creatures. These animals can be bred for war, which would give us a huge edge in combat. But it will be many years before these animals are large enough for that. Moldath and Sebfikod, a weaponsmith, has been taken by a Fey Mood. This is a rare opportunity, a guaranteed artifact weapon. There's no telling what she'll make. Meanwhile, Tor Westrout, the human diplomat, has returned, surprisingly soon after his last visit. I guess the irregular access to the fortress has kind of screwed up their schedule. He meets with Thob again, and as you might expect, doesn't have an enormous amount of new information to share. Ah, there's the human caravan. We've accumulated a lot of junk over the years. Worn out clothes, skull totems, and large gems, so we're happy to offload them. The dwarven caravan that left their stuff behind was also carrying an entire barrel of worm blood, which we would really like to get rid of. I don't know if that's like a delicacy or something back in the mountain home, but we really don't want it. We trade for iron and textiles, as well as some exotic alcohols. Moldath has created Muzishrit, Martyr Cuts, a steel mace. It is worth 109,200. That is an incredibly valuable treasure. It is encrusted with round microcline cabochons and encircled with bands of steel, cushion quartzite cabochons, cushion microcline cabochons, and acacia. The object menaces with spikes of sphalerite, llama wool, and dog bone. On the item is an image of forgotten beasts in copper, a formidable weapon. We'll be sure to give this to a dwarf worthy of it. 8-foot, Slayer of Spiders, will wield Martyr Cuts. We have no doubt that he will accomplish great things with it. And opportunities for valor are never hard to come by. The giantess Ongong Champion Range, the renowned courage, has come. A gigantic creature resembling a human, almost unparalleled in size. The gilded gears charge out to face the towering creature in battle. Ongong comes across an animal caretaker. Ooh, the giant punched the dwarf in the head and killed him. Here come the mace dwarves. Our people took some nasty hits, but they're gaining the upper hand. She's fallen to the ground. It's done. Ongong Champion Range, the renowned Courage, has been killed. Her head bashed in by a silver mace. It looks like only one soldier was wounded, but she's in a bad way. Her left arm has been mangled beyond recognition. Let's hope she makes it to the hospital in time. A migrant wave has come to the fortress, bringing us to 99 dwarves. 4 of them have been recruited into the Rocks of Speaking. That's the squad led by the 2 spear dwarves. The rest of the squad is going to train with battle axes. Best to have some variety in our militia. We'll dig out bedrooms for these new dwarves. But we can't afford to let our guard down here. The were-llama Utes Assaultuksu Suksuzum has come. Now you will know why you fear the night. The creature is near a number of civilians. This is not going to end well. The Gilded Gears charge out once again, hoping against hope that they can make it in time. 1 civilian is dead, a second, a third. The mace dwarves are here, accompanied by some human caravan guards. But we're taking hits. The mace dwarves have killed the were-llama, but some of these soldiers have been bitten. Let's try and figure out who's been infected. It's as we feared. All 3 of our wounded soldiers have been infected with the were-llama curse. 8-foot even lost an arm. Now, every full moon, they'll transform into terrible monsters. These dwarves will never be able to safely re-enter society so long as they live. But what would happen if they died, and were reanimated as undead? It may seem grisly, but this might be the only way to save them. We'll have to move fast if we want to make this work, while keeping the fortress safe. The 3 mace dwarves are now in the hospital. The plan is to lock each of them in their hospital rooms with a weapon trap, and to use that to kill them. Time is absolutely of the essence. Oh, damn it, I've just realized we're using the wrong type of trap. We need upright spike traps, which can be remotely triggered with a lever. We need to very quickly replace the traps. One of the dwarves is leaving their hospital bed. We can stick them in a squad and try to force them to stand in the right spot, but that can be pretty unreliable. The rest of the dwarves have left their beds too. Let's hope we can get them back in time. Trying to wrangle these mace dwarves into their nooks is near impossible, and we only have a few days left. We're going to try to make the cells a little bigger. There we go, 1 soldier is locked in. We only have 4 days left. We're out of time. We have 1 day left until the mace dwarves' turn. 2 mace dwarves are secured, but 1 is in the middle of our fort. Our only hope is to surround the infected dwarf with soldiers and pray to our gods. They've turned. There's no civilians around, so it's just our militia versus the werebeast. The hallway is caked with blood, so many soldiers torn asunder. It is truly horrifying. But the beast has been wounded and is retreating to the hospital. Vukar the mace dwarf werebeast has returned to dwarf form. If nothing else, at least we haven't spread the curse today. Vukar made quick work of all the dwarves he encountered. We need to get these bodies to the crypt. Maybe some can still be salvaged. Vukar has been secured in his cell now, for what it's worth. And in fact, these spikes seem to be working. We've got them stabbing constantly. All it takes is for one of the werebeasts to step on it and they're knocked unconscious, then eventually killed. So far, 2 of the mace dwarves have been killed. One of the corpses was mangled, but 8-foot's body was not. Excellent, let's go recover the bodies. There we are, we have just about all the corpses collected here in the crypt. 1 mace dwarf is still stubbornly not standing on the spear, so we'll just start without them. Let's send in Endok, the reanimated necromancer, to see if we can recover some of our people. Whoa! It's kind of hard to see with all this miasma around from the rotting corpses, but we just raised a half-dozen wasting stalkers, which would be great news, except 2 dwarves, including 8-foot, were raised as wasting stalker were-llamas, and are now fighting the others. Come to think of it, it is a full moon again. Well, everybody in the room was kind of dead anyway, so whatever happens, we won't really be much worse off. Let's just see how this plays out. Looks like everyone is ganging up on the werebeast, and Endok is even raising the other wasting stalkers when they go down. She's taking a heavy beating though, not sure how long she'll last. Her spine is mangled beyond recognition. Don't feel too bad for her though, she really doesn't mind. It's over. 8-foot killed all of them, then returned to his dwarf form. He left them all mangled beyond reanimation too, including Endok. In fact, Endok has been raised as a ghost, still clinging to the mortal realm after her numerous deaths. During the fight, she raised her thralls far more times than I had thought, with each being killed and reanimated dozens of times. It still wasn't enough to take down a werebeast wasting stalker, however. Eventually, when she died, the werebeast killed them all, and no one could bring them back. I guess this all goes to show how important it is to separate the necromancer from their subjects. We lost a half-dozen wasting stalkers, all because we failed to safely isolate the corpses. This does lead me to wonder more about the nature of reanimated werebeasts, though. 8-Foot is still alive, or rather undead, but he's been pretty well torn up, many body parts mangled beyond recognition. Normally, a werebeast will regenerate their wounds every full moon when they transform. But will 8-Foot transform again, or was he only reanimated as a werebeast because we raised him under a full moon? Will he remain a dwarf-wasting stalker for eternity now, freed from the werebeast curse? Might it even be safe to return him to fortress life? We definitely won't be allowing him to leave the crypt until we know for certain. However things turn out, I suspect 8-Foot will play an important role in the defense of our fortress going forward. During all that commotion, the dwarven caravan arrived. The outpost liaison is meeting with Mayor Zacit. He tells us that the goblins of the Fell Witch have been growing bolder. They openly attacked the capital 4 times last summer. Hundreds fell on both sides. The capital still stands, but the queen was struck down in one of the attacks. Yes, the late Queen Osnoon Doombirds. Osnoon the Usurper. A goblin of great ambition who spent decades scheming in the capital, growing her network of supporters through flattery and threats. And finally, 40 years ago, when she had corrupted enough people in high places, she made her move, deposing the dwarven queen Kumil Oil Heroes and ascending the throne. Kumil was imprisoned by Osnoon, sentenced to live out the rest of her days in the dungeons. However, soon after her incarceration, Kumil escaped and was never heard from again. The crown claimed Kumil was some supernatural abomination, near as old as written history itself. But then, a new ruler might say anything to try to discredit their predecessor. Many other rumors have spread about the former queen since her escape. Some say she's dead, some say she fled to some distant continent, and some say she took on a new identity, hiding her face while traveling Osnoon's kingdom, and even having the audacity to take part in tournaments at the capital, right under the new queen's nose. None of this is to say Kumil was some kind of saint. Many of her subjects hated her for the oppressive edicts she often signed into law. But the dwarves of Chantedfins are really quite weary of this intrigue regardless. Living under these unstable regimes, where power is handed from one tyrant to another through cloak and dagger politicking, it's no way to form a healthy community. Perhaps the new king will have a better head on his shoulders. The outpost liaison says he's a faithful worshipper of Tig the Lustful. But in truth, it doesn't matter much to the dwarves of Chantedfins. We have our own home to concern ourselves with. Incidentally, the outpost liaison doesn't really have any information on why 2 of our dwarves were appointed as barons. Dwarven succession law is kind of obtuse after all. I guess we're just going to have to put up with them. Anyway, we're finally able to trade with the dwarves again. Between this caravan and the human caravan from earlier, we finally offloaded all of our excess goods. Vukar, the last remaining were-llama in the hospital, has been killed by their spear trap. The body is mangled, and I'm not sure we'd really want to raise another were-llama anyway. The full moon is about to come out again, and 8-Foot has transformed. I figured this was the most likely outcome given that he was initially raised as a were-llama, but I wanted to be sure. Were-curses seem to behave normally for intelligent undead. Still, 8-Foot could be useful to us. He can't re-enter the fort, but if we keep him around we might be able to unleash him on any sieges that attack us. As a wasting stalker, he'd be a formidable foe, and if he transforms while fighting an enemy, he'd be near unstoppable. 8-Foot has transformed back into a dwarf, so we're going to try to move him into a safe holding location until we have need of him. This will take a little while, and we won't have access to the crypt until he's secured. We've started setting up some memorials to the dwarves that have died recently that we haven't been able to properly entomb. The crypt isn't exactly the most accessible place right now. More migrants are here, which will help replenish our losses from the recent tragedies. At least we won't need new bedrooms this time. We're back up to 97 dwarves now. Many of our losses have been to our militia dwarves. With this migrant wave, we're up to a fairly paltry 20 soldiers. But ready or not, our forces will have to make do. Because the forgotten beast, Snuztrak Onkko Sngo Gungo Ezusparstruck has come. A towering, feathered pterosaur. It has 3 long spiral horns, and it has a bloated body. Beware its noxious secretions. Snuztrak is in the upper cavern layer, where our cave entrance is located. I think it will be able to access the fortress, so we need to evacuate the cavern and seal it up. If our military were better prepared, I might have them try to fight it, but we're kind of in disarray right now. We need time to get the fort a bit more organized before we start messing around with ancient cave monsters. There is a wounded woodworker in the cave right now who was attacked by a giant olm earlier. She has lost the ability to stand and probably won't be able to get into the fort in time. I don't think we can afford a rescue attempt though. Here comes Snuztrak. The woodworker is trying to crawl towards the entrance. Snuztrak is getting too close. We need to seal the cave. The woodworker made it in, but will the lever be pulled in time to seal the entrance? We are ordering our remaining militia down into the cave entrance in case we're too late. Snuztrak made it in. It's going after some of our livestock. But now it's leaving. Looks like we got lucky. It's chasing a llama that we had pastured in the cave. And there we are, the cave has been sealed. We can rest easy knowing no more dwarves will die today. We can worry about clearing out the caves later. For now, we have some delicate business with 8-Foot. You see, after his resurrection, he was no longer an official member of the fortress. He needs to go meet with our leaders in order to petition for citizenship. If we want to use him as a militia dwarf, we'll need to get him and a noble in the same room to take care of the formalities of citizenship. But releasing him into the fortress could prove dangerous, even if we immediately send him to a secure cell once he's been naturalized. We're going to try to get the nobles to come to him, by restricting them to a burrow that includes his cell. There we go, it took a little effort, but we got 8-Foot into the same room as the nobles. He's attending a meeting with Zasit, the mayor. It's taking some time. We've got less than 2 weeks before he turns, and this meeting is taking a while. I don't like this. Alright, well we had to abort the meeting, but we've secured him in the cell regardless. He won't be as useful to us if he's not in a proper military squad, but we can have him conduct that meeting whenever we want, under safer conditions. Now that he's locked up, we'll at least be able to access the crypt and clean up all the bodies down here. But there's no rest for the wicked. A vile force of darkness has arrived. They no doubt hail from the same goblin civilization that has been attacking our capital. This group is pretty small, only 10 goblins are here. Unfortunately, the wall isn't quite done, so it wouldn't be safe to man it with Mark's dwarves. This means we'll need to retreat into the fortress for now. We're being attacked by another intruder. The kobold thief, Proliga Grambus. She's shown up a number of times since we founded the fort. Well, we're not letting her in. She can take her chances with the goblins. Anyway, the fort is now sealed up, though I don't want it to stay that way for too long. There's only 10 goblins out there. We have a far more powerful champion in the fortress, who will soon be ready to face them. Damn, someone was still outside, and was killed by the attackers. There's nothing we can do about that now, though. 8-Foot just finished his monthly transformation, which means now is the perfect time to conduct the meeting with Zasit. We're letting him enter the fort briefly. Good, he went straight to the mayor, and now he's a citizen again. He's collecting some clothes or something now, which is slightly risky, but he's heading back to his cell. And there we are. 8-Foot can now safely be assigned leader of his own squad, the Wasting Warrior. We left him some equipment here so he can get suited up. It's not quite a full set of armor, he's missing a helmet and 1 boot. But from what we've seen of wasting stalkers and werebeasts, I doubt he'll need it. If we time things correctly, 8-Foot will be nigh unkillable. We want to send him to the surface a day or 2 before the full moon. Even if he's wounded by the goblins, the werebeast transformation will regenerate his injuries, no matter how severe. Against a werebeast wasting stalker, I don't think these goblins stand the slightest chance. It's time. Let's see what 8-Foot can do. He transformed just before reaching the goblins. By Tig, it's a bloodbath. He's still holding his shield and weapon. and due to his sheer size, every blow is devastating. 8-Foot also retains his wasting stalker force magic as a werebeast. With a single point, he can launch goblins through the air, stunning them and leaving them open to attack. It's done. He's transformed back into a dwarf, and all the goblins lie dead. 8-Foot is now walking amongst the corpses, looting armor and clothing from their bodies. The spoils of war. I think we'd better let him do as he pleases. It looks like he's had his fill. We're sending him back to his cell. After such a display, we'll have to provide him with dwellings more fitting of such a magnificent warrior. We could hardly have asked for a better outcome. 8-Foot tore through the goblins with no resistance. With a champion so monstrously powerful as 8-Foot defending our fortress, we will never again need to cower underground when our enemies attack. It took much sacrifice, but Tig the Lustful has finally deemed us worthy to wield the true power of death. And with it, we will spread her gospel far. But it's getting late, and I must retire. Come find me again some other night, and hear more tales from the mighty dwarves of Chantedfins.